Good evening, everyone. We're just gonna wait a couple of minutes, maybe like one or two before we get started this evening and make sure everyone can hear and see. Thanks so much for being here. All right, we'll wait just another few seconds. I still see some people logging in. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat tonight, where you're coming from, what you've been reading. Amy and I will try to keep our eyes on that too throughout the night. Thanks, Amy. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome and good evening. This is the Milwaukee Public Library Book Chat Program. We're here this evening to talk about our favorite books that we've read this year in 2022. My name is Beth, and I'm the adult librarian at the East Branch. And joining me tonight is my esteemed colleague, Amy, who is a fellow book aficionado, former reviewer, and also an author. So I'm really excited she's helping out this evening. We just always want to remind everyone to sit back and relax. We're going to go pretty quick, so don't feel like you need to write down all of the titles and authors, because we will email you in a couple days with a recording and a complete list of everything we've talked about tonight. All right. And then we will ask attendees to share their favorite book or two or three in the chat, and we'll try to get those recommendations in at the end of our program. All right. So welcome, Amy. How's it going tonight? Where are you coming from? I'm in my office at home.
I'm in my office at work.
Very good. And you're at the Good Hope Branch, right?
I am at the Good Hope Branch.
Very nice.
Surrounded, I'm like literally surrounded. This desk is just piled high with all sorts of books in various states of, I don't even know how to describe it.
That's the way to be, though. That's the way to be, though. So before we jump into the recommendations, Amy and we're gonna have a little discussion about why we're talking about our favorite books and not the best books, because I'm sure most of you have seen the best books of the year list already. So Amy, why do we talk about favorites
instead? Best books. Here's the New York Times book review with the 10 best books of 2022. Like,
how do they pick that?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody here has kids, but like the best kid. How do you pick your favorite, your best? Best doesn't mean favorite in this context. It, for us, at least for me, Beth and I had to talk about this before, and we're just telling you the books that we like this year. The books that we're going to talk about might not have even been published this year, but the way these reviewing lists work, and I know a little bit about this because before I was a librarian, I did some reviewing, and I reviewed for Publishers Weekly, which is the industry trade publication, and I interviewed and I also reviewed books for People magazine, and they have a best of list, and we were actually, all the reviewers were asked to recommend things, and then they probably had some meeting in a room someplace and went through that. And so those lists are really, they're compiled by people. And, fashions change, fashions in books, fashions in food, fashions in clothes. So best and favorite, if you liked it, then it's your favorite. The best is a really, just don't even worry about it.
I absolutely agree. It's such a personal thing, reading. So we're here to mostly just give you an inclination, be excited about what we read. We've pulled a bunch of book recommendations from our other colleagues. So we just want you to leave feeling like you can try these, and it's not going to be, might not be your favorite, but it might be too, and that's okay.
And so, if you don't like it, stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pearl's rule, right?
Yes. What's that rule, Amy?
So Nancy Pearl's rule is that you read as many pages as you are old until you're 50. And then if the book doesn't grab you by then, just put it down unless you're reading it for work or an assignment or something. But then after you're 50, you actually subtract a page because I guess she figures you don't have as much reading time left. So for every year you are over 50, you actually subtract a page from that 50. And that's your baseline for like, this is just not working. Put it down. I would add though that I think books are like moods. Like sometimes, sometimes you want chocolate, sometimes you want Brussels sprouts. Like that's why you have more than one outfit in your closet, because sometimes you're in the mood for different things and different things will hit you at different times.
I absolutely agree. Well, even though we're talking about our favorites tonight, we did pull together just a couple other of the best of lists, just because I like looking at them and
It's
judging
fun.
them.
Yeah, you get
I
an
like
idea.
judging them.
I do too. And then like, did I read any of these? Oh, I didn't read
Mhm.
any of these. And then you think, oh, I'm not very well read if there were, like I was shocked at how many of these books were on this list that I have not.
Yeah.
Like kind of
One that I really like every year is in the Journal Sentinel, actually, because they usually pull a lot of Wisconsin authors that I might not have known are actually from here or live here, or the book is set in Wisconsin. So there was a lot of really good ones on this year's list, which came out in November. So definitely check that out. And then the New York Times, for the first year in a very long time or ever, had their 10 best romance novels, which I was excited to see as a romance reviewer. So it's good to see a genre that I love getting a little bit more hype and buzz. And I have to say, I really liked their list this year. So I am happy with those. So you should definitely check those out. And then
I'm Beth, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to
no, go for
interrupt
it.
you because I wanted to say to everybody who might be listening now and who might be playing this later that Beth is pretty much everybody in the library's go-to for anything about romance. I mean, and it's really fun. I read a lot more romance because of Beth now. And she really knows what she's talking about and she has awesome taste.
Thank you. I try. Oh, thank you, Amanda. Beth is the nexus of the romance world for me. Aww.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really fun genre. It's not for everyone, which I am fine with that too. If you don't like them, that's not a problem. I just feel like it's one of those things people are shy about talking about, and I'm not shy about it anymore. And I feel like it's a good thing to share my enthusiasm, because you'd be surprised the number of people who do read and enjoy romance. And oh, hi Lydia. Sorry, we have friends from MPL, our former MPL friends in the chat too. And we just, I just feel like being enthusiastic about something you love is a really awesome thing, and it is what I love most about people. So like, I like to follow people that really love science fiction, and that isn't my great love, but I do find good recommendations from them too, and do read more, outside of my comfort zone as well. So thanks everybody. And then I had to plug Library Journal too, because I review for them.
Yay.
So which is that task is pretty fun, because I read a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily have picked up on my own. And Library Journal focuses on a reader's advisory style review. So I'm not reviewing it based on my taste. I'm reviewing it based on who I might think this book will appeal to. So it's a very different way of reviewing, and it's a good stretch for my skills, especially if it's like, well, I didn't like this one, but here's readers who I think might. So definitely worth looking at theirs.
That's a really interesting. I never reviewed for Library Journal, but when I was reviewing for, everybody I've ever reviewed for, was what was the writer trying to do and how well did they do it? And that's really your only benchmark. It isn't, when you're reviewing, it isn't, did I like the book? It's, oh, I'm sorry, Anna. One of our coworkers recommended Waldwing with severe cough and congestion syrup if you have a cough. Anyway, I was being my ADHD self there. But with reviewing, it is really what were they trying to do and how well did they do it, not did you like the book. It's really interesting with readers advisory to be thinking about not just that, but who would be the right kind of reader for this book. And you
Mhm.
think about that too.
Yep. And it's a good place to go because, people think we know all the books. and, and no, that's not true. But if we get like our job, I know Amy and I have done extensive training on readers advisory where it's like we're going to interrogate you a little bit to figure out what works for you, because it's not about us, it's about you and what we can pull for you that was going to make you happy. So I hope some of our choices will do that tonight. Let me go to the next slide here. And in that vein, if you do ever need a recommendation and you don't want to just browse on your computer, come on down to the library. Anyone who's working on desk is going to be happy to help you find your next read, or as I like to do, I give people a stack because I can't help myself.
I do
And
too.
also, it's just easier that way.
Well, and what you do is I give people a stack and I say, I find out if you're in a howling hurry. I mean, I don't do this, but if you have a couple minutes, I will set you up with like 5 or 6 titles and just say, read the first couple pages. If it grabs you, take it. If it doesn't, just leave it.
And
That's
never
really
ever
fun.
worry about offending anybody, like, oh, those don't sound right for me. That's great. Let's try again. Or if you take one and you come back and you're like, well, that one didn't work for me and this one did, we can work with all of that.
And you
And if
walk in
you're
and you look around the library. I mean, there are a lot of books, guys. There's going to be
a
something.
lot.
It's just a matter of finding it.
Yep. It's a good puzzle to do. And then also what I would love to recommend is if you're a shy one or you don't want to do that interview before you, like when you come in, you can order what we call a mystery bundle on our website. So we'll send you the link to that service. So all you do is answer some questions and say like, these are things I like, these are things I don't like. I'm kind of looking for this or that. And then you select your pickup location, and then the staff at that location is going to pull 5 books, put them in a bag, and you come pick up the bag and you can check them all out and go. And
I
it's
think that
really
was a
fun.
really, that was one of the few brighter things that happened in the pandemic. And that was kind of why it happened, was because we weren't able to browse. And so one of the other things I like about that whole series of questions is, one of the questions is, do you prefer paperback or hardcover? I mean, it's
important.
Yeah, because books, I mean, it isn't always just about, it's about the words and the story, but it's also about like, how does this thing feel in your hands? Is it, and we're talking about paper and covers and the way something looks, just a book as an object.
Yep. And so people like to listen too. So we've got all of that for all of you, which is really great. All right. So this is just a fun photo of everyone with their library cards. And we hope if you don't have one, we can help you get one. And if you're not from Milwaukee or Milwaukee County, I'm sure your local public library system has a way to hook you up as well. So thanks so much for being here. Okay. And then before we jump into Amy and I's specific requests, I went through and just pulled a bunch of book recommendations that MPL has shared throughout the year. So if you're not following the library on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, I highly recommend it, and TikTok as well. Our staff is always sharing what they're reading online throughout the year. So I went and picked just selection of many. So these, I just grabbed a few. I wanted to make sure to pick Greg because Greg co-hosts Book Chat with me quite a bit. So I wanted to say, hi, Greg, you're not here, but we miss you.
We do miss you. Hi, Greg.
Greg recently transferred back to Central and he's in the special collections department. And his recommendation this year, he actually talked about it during our Mikey Cody Apollo Book Chat program, but it's The Powers of Darkness, the lost version of Dracula. So this was an Icelandic translation from the 1900s that got discovered, and it had an intro from Bram Stoker that was not included in the original manuscript, I guess. So it's a really neat thing that they've translated back from the Icelandic into English. So he thinks it's pretty fantastic. And like, I had never heard of this, so that was really exciting for me to see. I guess it was 1901 that they published this in Icelandic, so pretty neat. All right, and then let's see. Kiara, who's also from Central, recommended Crying in H Mart, which is one I've been meaning to read, by Michelle Zauner.
That one's on the
Sh-
list.
It's one of those ones I'm like, oh, I keep meaning to. So it confronts the realities of growing up as a first generation Asian American while also examining the author's life through honest experiences and food influences. It will make you laugh and cry. And that's a really popular one that I see going out quite a bit on hold when I am shelving those. I always like that cover too with the noodles. Okay. And then Travada, who's also from Central, recommends The Memory Librarian by Janelle Monáe and other writers. Travana was really excited about this one because it's a series of stories that reflect on Blackness, queerness, and feminism in science fiction. And says, even if you don't listen to Janelle Monáe's music, definitely give this one a chance. So it's be a good.
Confessions, I borrowed it and I was like, it just sat in my pile. I just never got to it. And then I had to return it because somebody had it on hold.
Yeah, I've had that happen, but the good thing is you can always get it back.
I will get it back.
Yep. All right, and then Brianna recommends Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is also one that I've had on my list this year, but it seems to never be on the shelf because it's just constantly on hold for everyone. So I should probably just go ahead and put it on hold myself. Brianna says, if enemies to lovers, banter, and meta and common bookish tropes plus kissing appeal, definitely give this one a try. I know Emily Henry has been a big hit, up and rising romance novelist, so definitely.
It looks like a really fun summer read.
Absolutely. I think they're both in the publishing world, the characters, so if you like that too, that'll be great.
I think I read the back of that one and thought, yeah.
Have you heard of this one, Amy? I did not. It's called What the Fireflies Knew by Kai Harris, and it's
just
recommended
recently.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I need to read this. So librarian Anaya recommends this one. Oops, I need my notes. And says it's told from a 10-year-old's point of view after the death of her father. The 10-year-old's name is KB, is sent to live along with her sibling with their estranged grandfather for the summer and is determined to answer questions about some dark family secrets. So
that's one of my favorites this year, is about family secrets.
We'll
get to it.
And I always enjoy when a protagonist, we get the point of view of either like a protagonist that's not around your age. So either way, that's always for me a good thing to experience. Kind of shift your mindset. All right. And then I had to pick my manager. So this is my manager, Isa Enid. So Enid's been a vegetarian since high school, and she loves getting all of vegetarian cookbooks that come in to, test out recipes. And she was really excited about this one called Power Plates by Gina Hamshaw, and she recommends the citrus soba salad on page 86, which was delicious and awesome. And I think this was kind of a take of like one plate, one bowl type cooking and eating. So definitely give that one a check out. I always like getting cookbooks too. I gotta try them before I buy them,
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and then I guess it's my turn. So yay. Okay. So Amy asked me how many, and I was like, well, I don't know. It's just the two of us. So I think we could do like 6. And of course, I lied and I put more than 6. So
I put way more than 6.
So but no one will tell. We get to make the
I'm
rules.
so glad you put the hacienda, because I forgot to put that one down and I just loved it.
It's so good. Okay. So my first one, I actually just read it with the Climate Action Book Club, which is run by our colleague and program librarian, Kelly. So if you would like to check that out, definitely do it. It's a virtual book club, and we read books about climate action. And this one was chosen to be a cookbook. We thought a cookbook would be a good choice for November. And it's called The Sioux Chef's Indigenous Kitchen, and it's by Sean Sherman with Beth Dooley. I just really love the recipes in here and the history and discussion of why Indigenous Native ingredients should be more readily available, and we should be focusing on trying to cook more with these items because they do grow here. And what's really great too is I did not know this, but all of the recipes in this book are naturally gluten-free and dairy-free because of the ingredients that they are made with. So there's no processed flour, there's no dairy. Like that wasn't part of the indigenous diet or culture, so they're not present in the book, which is really, like, of course I should know that, but I did not know that. And I made actually they had a squash soup with a cranberry like compote on the top, and it was so good. And everything is broken down really great, and there's kind of like, here's a pantry list of things that you should have on hand, and it kind of is seasonal as well, and it would just be a great thing to have at home as like a kitchen reference. So I am going to be trying to buy that one now that I've tried it out from the library, which is my favorite thing to do. Okay. And then The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. I'm surprised I don't see this one going out more at work. I think it's really awesome, and it's one I haven't stopped thinking about since I read it. It's really got a different setting, so kind of imagine a Western, but in more modern times, and also there's zombies.
Ooh.
Yeah, so but they call them drudges in the book, so it's like formerly alive people who have now lost their soul, and they're like shuffling around, and it's a romance, but the world building is just amazing, and it really brings in this exploration of grief and the afterlife. So the main character, the heroine, is a person who runs like a funerary establishment that was her father's, and she helps bring in the dead bodies and like prepare them for the afterlife and for their final thing. And it's very like poignant, and she's very lonely and unhappy because she would like to keep doing this job, but she's a woman and it's not really a woman's job in this world, and her family doesn't know that she's like doing all this work to keep their family business afloat. And then the hero is this kind of demigod warden guy that's trying to keep everyone safe from these grudges, and he often brings in, you know, the bodies to her business to get like taken care of, because if you don't take care of them a certain way, they could rise from the dead, which you don't want. And it's hard to explain, but I loved it, and it has like a lot of Viking and Egyptian mythology, and just the care of like the deceased is very apparent in this book. And it sounds sad, but it was really like lovely. So give it a go. I've heard the audio is very good. I haven't listened to it. I tried, but there's a lot of vocab that I needed to like see with my eyes, so I've read it instead with my eyeballs. Okay. And then you might have heard me on WWM recommending the Hacienda back in November, or was it October? I can't recall, but it's awesome, gothic, atmospheric. If you liked Rebecca, this is the perfect next step for you. It was really spooky. Like, it made me unsettled. What did you think of it, Amy?
Oh God, I loved it. I mean, I just the setting, everything about it was it just kept me reading. I don't even know where to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
like
terrible at, if I'm not writing about it, it's just like it's really hard for me to formulate. But I love the way that the family, it's just it's creepy, but it's also it's amazing. And the end, oh my God.
Yeah, you're like,
oh, I mean, the whole like it's sort of Dr. Moreau, like oh no,
yeah.
I'm mixing it up with the Dr. Moreau book with Sylvia Marina Garcia. Yeah, but they're both like set in Mexico, and they're both gothic. So and I read them both this year.
Yes, they're both very good. Like, and this is the type of horror that I can handle personally. Like, I used to be much more into spooky books, but then I'm older now, and the world is scary, so I try to run away from it a little bit more. But this one I liked, and it's not so much like gory scary, it's more like atmospheric and spiritually lapsed Catholic-y scary.
Well,
So
and I also think that
mhm.
the fact that it's set in a different century
Yes. Yes.
makes it easier, you know, because I so feel what you're saying about anxiety, and that's the
Mhm.
reason
It's like
I can't handle horror movies and things. Life is just scary enough. But
mhm.
if you take me back to like
Yeah.
all of these people are resting in peace now, so and there was no electricity then, I'm in.
Yep, and there's no children in peril in this
Right.
one, which for me is like a hard no. So this one worked really well because she's a new bride. She marries basically a stranger to like get out of like the clutches of her horrible like step family and her mother. And it's a lot about the agency of women in this time period as well. So that was very
Wait, wasn't okay, yeah. Yeah.
mhm,
Yep.
yes.
Yes,
All
this is
right.
one.
Mhm. Okay. And then my next one is Bend Towards the Sun. And I think everyone who can handle the content should read this one. It like broke my heart and stitch it back together throughout the story. It's so the main character, the guy, he is a very brand new like OBGYN. He lost a patient very unexpectedly in delivery, and like he's traumatized and had to leave to process this. And so he's back at his family's like brand new winery that they're trying to build out of this old winery that was like really left to go to seed. And then they bring her in because she's a botanist and she understands like the plants, and like they're trying to bring back the vines. And then so it takes the course of a year for them to kind of dance around each other because they're both very sad and brokenhearted folks. And it was just like really lovely to read this one. And it's like a cross between Nora Roberts and like where Nora Roberts writes really decent like male characters who you just like, this is a really good guy. Like I really like this guy. And then Kate Claiborne, who has this beautiful writing. So it's kind of like a baby between those two. And I just loved it. And I feel like it's one of those books that is flying under the radar. And I want more people to read it so she has the chance to write another book for this family because there's siblings. And I'm like, I want all of their books because I'm greedy.
Sort of like Bridgerton.
Yes.
Only
A little less of a scale, but yes. All right. And then I had to bring up a proposal they can't refuse. We hosted the author Natalie Kanya here on chat. We can send you the link to that recording. I won't talk about it too much, but she is a brilliant writer. This is her debut, and she lives here in Milwaukee. And this book is set in Chicago, and it was just really fun and great. And I just loved it a whole lot. And I hope she writes a whole lot more too. All right. And then since I cheated and had more, I pulled out my favorite audiobooks. So I've been listening to a lot more audiobooks this year. I have more driving time now that I'm commuting back to East again. So these are my favorites, and I'll tell you why. So I really love a memoir that's narrated by the author. So Ashley Seaford's Somebody's Daughter, she narrates her story, and it's just really exquisite and well narrated, and she brings to life her words like no one else possibly could. And it's funny and dark and sad, but also at the end, you feel good. And I hope she writes more because she had a quite difficult childhood and struggles with her mother. So it was just a really good book, and listening was the best way to experience that one. All right. And then Camila Knows Best. The narrator was just so engaging and active. And this is Emma by Jane Austen adaptation romance. And I just thought it was really clever. And we just read it for Pop Genre Romance Book Club. And I just really enjoyed it a whole heck of a lot. The Emma character, which is Camila, she is like a dog influencer. She's got her little dog Darcy, who she dresses up in cute little designer outfits, but she's also a accountant, which is not very glamorous. But she still manages to make it so. And she realizes she's in love with her best friend throughout the course of the book, who puts up with her prickliness and her over the topness. And then there's gorgeous food descriptions and beautiful Bollywood imagery. So definitely check that one out. Okay. And then Heartbreaker by Sarah McLean. She's one of my favorite romance authors, but the reason I wanted to bring this one up specifically is the narrator is Mary Jane Wells, who I feel is like the best historical romance narrator out there. She can do anything and I will listen to it. She could read a phone book and I'd listen to it. She can do all the accents, all the characters. It's just beautiful. So definitely, if you like historical romance, listen to anything Mary Jane Wells narrates. Sorry, my notes are kind of long here. Okay. And then I've been trying to get more into poetry. It's not my strong subject, but I've been trying. And I had to read this one, Nature Poem by Tommy Pico, for also Climate Action Book Club. And this one is just a, it's hard to explain what this poem is about, but it's, he's an indigenous author who does not like nature, who lives in the city. And this is kind of his fictionalized self, and he narrates his poem, and it's just really good. But it's like reckoning with colonialism and white stereotypes and manifest destiny, and I glad I listened to it this year. It's really description defying other than that. So it's on Hoopla and I think Overdrive, so you can easily download it, and it's not very long, so give it a try if you're trying to stretch your boundaries. All right. I think that's all of mine.
Cool.
Oops. Nope. I lied.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
So Amy and I also talked about bringing up a couple that we were like, oops, we meant to read that. So I still have both of these on my pile to experience. I need like a weekend or a vacation to read Babel by R.F. Kuang. It's a dark academia fantasy novel that is an anti-capitalist, colonialist, like screed. So it's really you're gonna have to sit with your discomfort with this one. And I've just heard amazing things. And it's about a language scholar who's learning to decolonize language. So very excited.
Thanks,
about
Lydia.
that.
Lydia said I literally just finished Babel. Amazing, but the footnotes.
Oh, but I love footnotes. That's exciting.
I'm reading a book right now and I'm skipping the footnotes because it's so dense, but you'll hear more about it.
Well, okay, but that's good to know. I will definitely read that with my eyes because I don't know if I can do footnotes in audio. But thank you, Lydia. I bet it's a chunky one too. That's okay. And then I can literally only read one Kennedy Ryan a year. That's all I can handle, because she will just drag you through the ringer 100%, like rip your heart up, but then heal it, because it's always a happily ever after with Kennedy. I have to say, this is the author I wish people who are reading Colleen Hoover would try also, because I feel like she gives a lot of the same vibes and emotions, but with a little less toxic stuff. So if you haven't read her yet, definitely give it a try. I will warn, this one it's a marriage in trouble romance, so they're already married and their marriage is crumbling due to a lot of things, including infertility. So do make sure to check the content warnings before you jump in. But I'm meaning to do this one with a box of Kleenex close by. So boy. All right, now it's Amy's turn. Okay. I'll be quiet now.
All right. No, don't. Please pipe up with anything. So
will do.
All right. Oh gosh. And I should probably have notes up, but I don't have any notes. I'm just gonna talk. So these are only some of the favorite books that I read this year, because every time I read a book, I'm looking here going, why didn't I put The Seven Wives of Evelyn Hugo? Which, wonderful if you haven't read it. But Belle Green, I really want to talk about, because there was another book called The Personal Librarian, and written by, it was 2 authors, and I read that one first. And it's about Belle Green, who was the librarian, and she was real. She was the librarian for J. Pierpont Morgan. She was the private librarian for the Pierpont Morgan Library. She went all over the world acquiring all of these books and building his library. But the thing about her is she was Black, except that this was the turn of the last century, and being a woman in this job was one thing, but being Black would have been, you just couldn't. And she was light-skinned enough to pass as white or Italian. My sister and I both read both books. And the personal librarian, she was kind of one-dimensional in that book. I just felt like there was more there. And this book, Alexandre Lapierre, is French, and this book is translated, and it is the book. It's might be like one of my favorite of favorites, but it's so good, and so rich, and it talks about so many things, and not just the world in which she finds herself and the constraints under which she is living, but constraints of other people too. So highly recommend. Revenge of the Librarians. This is been on my nightstand. I've borrowed it. I mean, I've got it home and it's right here. It's these wonderful drawings. They're hilarious. If you are a writer or a reader or somebody who loves words, and likes British humor, this is just a wonderful book. The Latecomer is, if you look at, it's the story of these, on the face of it, it's the story of these triplets who just all hate each other. They're conceived with IVF, and then there's a younger sibling who comes much later. But the story is really about family trauma and family secrets. It starts, I think, in the 50s, maybe, with the main characters, the parents, and then the kids, and it goes up to now. So you've got all kinds of really interesting things that happen in this book, and sort of what happens when the secrets start to unravel. You've got somebody who's a closeted, someone who's gay and just doesn't realize it. You've got this horrible right-winger who gets caught up in MAGA stuff. It's really interesting and really well done. Ducks by Kate Beaton, that just came out. She did, it's also a graphic novel. If you've heard Hark a Vagrant, those cartoons, that's what she does, but this is actually a narrative. And she spent 2 years as a young woman. She was born and raised in Eastern Canada in a community where there wasn't a lot of money, and went to art school. And in order to pay off her student loans, she went to work in the oil sands in Alberta. And that's what this book is about, that. And it's really good. Let's see, I'm going to go with next. So you can see I read everything. I read fiction, I read nonfiction. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty is a romance, but it is a really messy, really fun romance. It starts with tragedy. You've got the characters are she's an artist who's a widow, and there's a lot of sex in it, and some of it is, so if you're kind of not into hookups, this might not be your thing, but really it's so good. I will follow this writer anywhere, pretty much. Lauren Groff, she wrote Fates and Furies. This book, I think, came out last year, Matrix. It is set in France in a nunnery. The main character is a sort of, she's the illegitimate offspring of the king, and kind of awkward. And Eleanor of Aquitaine is married to the king now and shuffles her off to, you're going to be the abbess of this convent. Isn't that wonderful? And it's a mess. But she goes, I mean, and this woman, it's said, I think, in the 12th century, and she turns this nothing convent into France into the whole village. She just makes it a total growing concern, and it's an incredible book. And Lauren Groff is an amazing writer. Plunder, recommended by my sister. And what I really loved about this book, there was a section in the middle where it was a little draggy, but it's so interesting. He was born in 1977, this writer, and he's a Canadian Jewish guy, and he grows up hearing the stories of the apartment building that his grandparents lived in and owned, and that it was, taken by the Nazis. And he decides he's going to get it back. And so he goes to Poland, he gets a lawyer, he goes to Poland, and he sees the apartment building. But there's this whole other subplot. He finds out that his great uncle, who he didn't know existed, kept this journal even while he was a prisoner of the Nazis. They had to dig these tunnels, and he kept this incredible journey, and these tunnels were supposedly filled with gold. And these journals somehow survived, and there's these treasure hunters in Poland. Like, this is real. There's these actual treasure hunters, and this guy is like his great uncle is the god of the treasure hunters. So he gets like sucked into this really, really crazy, wacky treasure huntery world where people are looking for Nazi gold. Anyway, it's really interesting. And to me, because it's kind of now the third generation of the people who were in the Holocaust, who were in the camps and who were affected, to see its impact on that generation is really interesting. So the other three books that are here, All the Rivers, The 30 Names of Night, and Good Time Party Girl, are all books that my book club, my library book club, which is called Coming to America, read this year. More on that in a future slide. All the Rivers was in May. It was banned by the Israeli Ministry of Education. She's an Israeli writer. This is a fictionalized, account of her relationship with, his name was Hilmi, was his last name, Hassan, I think. He was a Palestinian artist. And they met in New York and fell crazy in love. And so this is a fictionalized account of that relationship. It broke my heart, and it was beautiful, and she does not shy away from the realities of what that relationship is, and it's fascinating. The 30 Names of Night, we read in June, and that book is by Zain Jukadar, and he is a Syrian-American writer, and it is about the Syrian immigrant community, and it's about issues of gender identity and survival. His mother, the character's mother, died in a fire, and the character is transitioning and doesn't have a name for most of the book, is trying to figure out who he is. And there's another artist involved. They're both artists. It's a lovely, lovely book. Good Time Party Girl. Beth and I were talking about reading, and one of the things that I love about books is you know, a lot of the people I'm looking at these books and I'm thinking like, who of these people would I have actually wanted to sit down and talk to and spend a lot of time with? And some of them I would, and some of them I wouldn't, and some of them wouldn't give me the time of day. And I think, and Dirty Helen Cromwell was a Milwaukee legend in the, probably in the 50s, 40s, 50s. She had a bar on 25th Street. It's now like Solly's parking lot. But she was a legend, and this is her story. And the publisher, Christina Ward, lives in Milwaukee, and she came to our book club, and it was really, really fun. All of this to say, I think I would have been really scared of Dirty Helen. She's kind of
Same.
really interesting. It's just you just she also, and this is her word, so you know, memory is slippery, but she paid she was friends with Joe McCarthy, who was one of the young men who used to sweep up at her bar, which is also I think it was a brothel too at different points. Anyway, it's a really fun read. And she made her way in a time and a place where, again, where women didn't have a lot of choices. And she made some choices that in our book club, people were side-eyeing her, because when she left her cheating husband, she took one of their sons and left the other. And I mean, there's real ramifications. So there was that. Did I miss anything here? I don't think I did. Yep. So next slide. So yes, things I meant to or I'm currently reading. So I'm reading The Common Wind right now, which I found out about from an anthropologist at UMass who did a keynote at a library conference. And it is just, it's fascinating. It's really dense. Lydia talked about footnotes, lots of footnotes in this book. It was his dissertation in 1986. And it's Afro-American currents in the age of the Haitian Revolution. And it basically talks about, I mean, it was sort of like Twitter and the internet, where the sailors and the people who were on the ships and who passed the word about slave revolts, because Haiti, the Haitian Revolution of 1792 remains the only successful uprising in, I think, in history on this continent. And I'm learning a lot. It's very academic. So I'm reading, like, I read a couple of pages every night, and then I'm like, so that's about all I can absorb. Knocked Down it's a memoir about kind of everything. Aileen she meets this guy, she's single, she meets this guy in New York, she gets married, she gets pregnant, she moves, and they go to a doctor's appointment, and she has these fibroids, and she ended up on bed rest for most of the pregnancy, but not in New York, in the middle of nowhere. And I'm only at the beginning of it. I started it because Beth said, as Beth said, I'm an author, which is a really weird thing for me to say, because I just finished my first full-length book. So I was writing a lot this year. And so that's on my list. I'm going to pull Aileen back because she's really fun, and I'm really looking forward to reading this memoir. I've been reading George Saunders' A Swim in the Pond in the Rain for probably a year and a half off and on, because I don't want it to end. It's like a class. It's literally the class he teaches at Syracuse University. He's a writing professor, and it's these 4 Russian short stories by these 4 Russian masters, and then talking afterwards, he breaks them down and what was going on in the stories. And I would love to take this class, but I feel like I'm taking this class by reading this book, because he's just so welcoming and so collaborative, and it's very easy to read, and it's really fascinating how he kind of takes apart what the writers are, what's in each story and why it's there. And somebody said that they're reading Braiding Sweetgrass right now, and it was our climate action book club book, I think last year, and I've been wanting to read it for a long time. And I started reading it, and I realized it is also a Coming to America book. So it is in rotation next year. It will be the November Coming to America book. But I just am loving it. It is gentle, and it is firm, and it's informative, and it's soothing, and it's just also, consciousness raising. It's just everything a book should be or could want to be in one package. And it's so unpretentious. She's just the humility that she brings, which isn't, you can't make that stuff up. You can't, it's not humble bragging. It's just, she's just so matter of fact that it's just a beautiful, beautiful way to read. Beth, you there? Okay, so next slide.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I'm here.
Hi. It's like, where'd you go? All right.
Sorry.
All right. So here's our looking forward to 2023. And we both put some things down. So Beth, I want to hear about the minuscule mansion of Myra Malone. And
Yeah. So I just heard about this one, and essentially it's kind of like a mystery, slightly supernaturally romancy one where this woman is very into building like miniature doll houses, and she's famous on Instagram for these things, and this man notices that she's been recreating rooms from his life in his childhood. And he's like, how does she know to do that? She doesn't know me. And then they connect, and it kind of goes from there. And I kind of love those like creepy Victorian doll houses that people build. And I also like those miniature Instagram accounts where, they make all the little teeny tiny food and furniture and all that. So I thought that one sounded like a lot of fun. And then I have actually already read Georgie all along, so I got an early copy. Kate Claiborne is one of my all-time favorite authors, and I'm just going to go ahead and say I think this is my favorite contemporary romance of next year. Bold statement. It's just really lovely. This is her 5th novel, I believe, and I think we'll be hosting her in February, shortly after the book comes out. It comes out at the end of January. And it's about a woman who she's lost her job as like a personal assistant, and she's moving back home to kind of figure out what to do next. And her best friend is having a baby, so she's coming home to like help with that. And she rediscovers this notebook that her and her friend used to pass back and forth when they were in high school. And it was their friend fic. So they used to like dream about what their life would be like when they were grown-ups and like what they hoped they would do. And she's realized she didn't do a lot of the things that she had hoped she would do when she was in high school. So she decides to start doing them. And then she meets a guy along the way, and it's just beautiful. And I love it. So those are mine.
hey, well, Cantica, full disclosure, Elizabeth Graver went to, I know her because she and my sister went to graduate school together. And so Cantica is coming out next year, and she's been working on this book probably for 10 years. And it is a novel based on her grandmother, who was a Sephardic Jewish woman from Istanbul, whose family lost all of their fortune when she was a child and when the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And so she goes from Turkey, they end up in Barcelona. She marries, doesn't work out real well. She ends up in Havana. She ends up and ultimately in New York. And I haven't actually, I've only read like the first couple chapters, but it's a Coming to America book. It's the October book, and Elizabeth is going to be joining us at that at that book club, so I'm really excited about it. And so celebrity gossip is my guilty pleasure. And
Me too.
so I am really, really interested in reading Spare. I already have it on hold at the
Me
library. I
too.
think, yeah, I think I was like 50 something. I don't know. Like, I think this is a book that's, I don't know if it's going to be as good as Becoming. I think it's really different, but I think it's probably going to be as big as Becoming was. Where I think at some point there were like 250. They're like, the book had been out for almost a year and there were still 253 holds on it. But I'm very curious as to, you know, call me shallow, and I'll just say, yeah, fine. Okay,
It's not shallow. You're just a curious human being. He's the one putting it out there.
It's true. And I'm not buying it.
Nope. We just put it on hold.
Yes, Amanda, you are my person.
I'm like, what more could he be saying after this documentary too? We don't know.
I've only watched the first episode of that.
Yeah, me too. That's all I've had time for. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Amanda says there's something fascinating about people who have to live their lives in that weird environment. Very true.
Well, and did he even know? Like, how do you grow up? You think your life is normal when you're a little kid. That's like you think everybody lives like you, and like at what point do you realize, wait, things are not? And then to walk away from all of it it's really interesting. Anyway,
yay.
Next slide.
Cool. Well, we always have to plug, if you've missed any of our other book chat programs, they are all available on the library's YouTube channel, along with a wealth of other awesome virtual selections. Every view helps our counts, so we do recommend you take a peek at those. We had some really great guests, and I'm hoping to continue on into 2023. I don't have anything currently for January, but stay tuned for more. And if there's anybody you'd like us to invite, just let us know. We'll try. Okay, and then I just want to plug a couple of our programs. So I run our romance pop genre book club for the East Branch. We are extending that into 2023. So our next session is February 7th. We'll be reading and discussing 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is an in-person club, so we do meet at the East Branch. And then my awesome colleagues, Becky and Rachel, who you see in the picture there, they run their pop genre book clubs at their branches. So Becky does the mystery one, which is at Mitchell Street. And then Rachel does the horror one, which is at Bayview. And they are cool as heck. And I definitely recommend you check those out. Good
I
groups.
love 7 Days in June. I might come to your book club.
Yeah, come. We can talk about it. I love the opening.
If I'm not on
the opening.
Totally coming.
Yes, the opening is so good because they were childhood sweethearts and they haven't seen each other since then, and then they get thrown on stage together and it's like awkward.
Yeah, way awkward.
And then Amy, talk about your next books for Coming to America.
So this is my Coming to America book club, which started as a project of the Yiddish Book Center. But anyway, and now it's us. And so Coming to America is more of an ideal. So we don't just talk, it's not just about immigration, because we're always coming to America and we're all coming to America. And so in November and January, we do the same book. We sort of carries over because you do a big fat long one. So like the Love Song of W.E.B. Du Bois, which is just your average 793 page book. So we did the first 400 pages in November, and we're going to discuss like the whole thing in January. But this month we're doing a cookbook because I figure December's a really busy month. I tried this last year. We did To Asia with Love by Hetty McKinnon. It was so much fun because this is a virtual book club. So nobody has to drive anywhere. Amanda, you can just log into this book club because it meets the third Wednesday of every month from wherever you are. And so with the cookbook, I just say, if you're a cook, make something, tell us how it was. If you're not a cook, pick something that you would make, tell us how you liked it. And then for February, we're doing the Wangs versus the World, which is supposedly getting, I looked at Goodreads. It's not getting great reviews on Goodreads, but I'm liking it so far. I think it's fun. And then some of the other titles we read this year were Behind the Lens by Janae Sacken. And we're going to do a drawing, I think, because we're going to give away a couple of these. This was a really fun book. It's just a page turner. It's set in Annie Hawkins Green, who's the main character, is a war photographer, a war correspondent, and she goes to Afghanistan to help her best friend and to teach a photography class at her best friend's girls' school. In July, we read A Beginner's Guide to America, which is a really interesting book, especially for people like me who were born here and kind of take it all for granted. And it's really the point of view of what it's like to come to America. And she wrote it in second person, but it really works. A Song Everlasting was our August book by Ha Jin. That was a very quiet, lovely book about a singer who comes over from China and gets into some trouble and doesn't go back because it wouldn't be a good idea for him. Parachutes by Kelly Yang was our February book. It's a YA book. It was a wonderful read, but it also touches on some sexual assault issues. It's about Asian, I didn't know that this was a thing, but wealthy Asian families often send their children to the US for high school because it's easier for them to get into US colleges. And so it is a story about one such family and then families over here that make money who are not as wealthy by hosting these kids, and they pay to live there. And so there's class questions about class, questions about identity. There you go.
And then my last program of 2022 is coming up soon. So next week, Tuesday, I'm hosting a cozy craft and reading party in the spirit of Jola Bókaflóð, which is the Icelandic book flood. So in Iceland, on Christmas Eve, they typically exchange new books as gifts to celebrate, Christmas and the end of the year. This is a no denominational, just cozy reading party. So we'll have a fireplace on the TV with the crackling fire, and I have some crafts to make. I do have to say that I had a bigger craft, but registration is full for that. So sorry about that, but we'll still have lots of things for you to do if you can make it, and warm beverages to sip. And everyone should be able to leave with at least one book to either keep for yourself as a gift or to give away as a gift. So I have piles of advanced reading copies to get rid of. So it should be fun. I did this in the before times and it was a really great success at East. So I hope to see you there.
We're actually after 7.
Yeah, okay, and then let's wrap it up for everyone. My last plug will be the Climate Action Book Club, which is also continuing on into January and throughout 2023. I guess that wasn't my last program. I have another one on the 19th, which is Monday. I guess it is the last one. So do join us. It's a virtual book club if you can't make it in person. It's a really awesome group and makes you feel a little bit more not secure, but better about the future, because I feel like if we work together, discuss these things and work towards making a better planet for everyone, we can get there. So hope to see you there.
And mine is the 21st, so on Wednesday, which is also virtual, and it's the cookbook.
And thank you to Slides Carnival for their beautiful slides, which I borrowed from the internet. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you, Amy, for joining us, and have a great rest of your week, and also Happy New Year, and we hope to see you soon. And bye, Lydia.
Yeah, bye, Lydia. Thank you, Beth, for inviting me. This was so much fun.
And then don't worry, I'm off for a couple of days, but hopefully Saturday or Monday we'll send you an email with the recording link and a list of everything we talked about. So look for that early next week. Have a good night. Thanks, Amy.
Bye.